everybody. Jay and I are extremely excited for this podcast where this guest is an entrepreneur, happens to be the matriarch of their family.
And the author of Outnumbered, How an Average Supermom Raised 5 Professional Athletes.
Ms. Diane Gronkowski, Momma Gronk. This is really exciting, so hope you enjoy. All right, everybody, welcome. Today we got an amazing guest. This guest was introduced to me formally. Well, I met her formally today, thanks to my mother, who's the matriarch of our family. Actually, the whole reason why we're down here in Florida now for 20 years is because of my mother, who actually doesn't get nearly enough credit for all the success that we've had, the boys have had in this business, including Jay, who's extended family. I would argue this mother has quite the resume. And today, we'd like to introduce Miss Diane and talk about her book, Outnumbered. How you doing today?
Super. How can you not be super when you're in Florida, right?
Every day feels like Saturday. Yeah. Dan, would you mind telling us, just give us a little brief bio on who you are, where you're from, and then we'll unpack it from there.
Okay, well, Diane Gronkowski, if you don't recognize the last name, I have 5 sons, all played professional sports. 4 played in the NFL, 1 played in Major League Baseball. Of course, Rob, my 4th son, is the most popular because he stayed with the Patriots, for 9 years, and then the Buccaneers for 2 years, where the other boys were with, a year here, a year here, a year here. So they were kind of, and maybe a little more out west. So they weren't as popular. And of course, Rob has continued on with his, antics, known for his antics and being in the commercials and movies and commentating. So, more people know him. But anyway, yes. So I have the 5 sons. I grew up, they grew up in the Buffalo, New York area, Williamsville, New York, Amherst, New York area. So that is a little bit about me. And then when the kids all grew up and they were off on their own, and the last one left for college, I was like, I don't need to stay, up north anymore. And so I moved down to Florida full time.
I bet you didn't know what to do with yourself then.
Oh, no, I was, no. I was still traveling, but I just wasn't traveling from Buffalo. I was traveling, I did 26 weekends a year, flew somewhere. Wow. Because with all 5 of them playing, so I had 3 in the NFL at one time, and 1 in, Glenn was still in Kansas State University. So, that was the 4th, game to go to. And then, Gordy was playing baseball, so he wasn't exactly the same season, but overlapped a little bit. But he was out west, so a good 26 weekends a year. So I would just take all the schedules, look at them, compare, which ones I could go to, if they played against each other, things like that, which ones I wasn't going to go to. I stayed away from the away games. You try to go to the home games. The away games are tough because you don't really get to see them anyway. So I might as well just watch it on TV.
So I've heard you have a home watch business now down here, but, just to touch on what you just were bringing about, raising, first of all, the mathematical probability. I'm sure you probably know better than us to have 5 professional athletes in one family. I don't even know if there's a comparison. Is that ever even been done before?
I only heard of one family, but it really wasn't a comparison because it was maybe in the early 1900s, and there was a dad who was starting back then what was the NFL team, and he had a bunch of his sons, and he put them all on the same team. So there was no college, no draft, no. So I'm not quite sure that.
So you're one of a kind.
Yes, I was told I had a better chance to win the lottery than to have all 5 of them go pro.
Oh yeah.
So,
but owning a business now, but now going back and raising 5 professional, like that had to be almost a business, like. The amount of stuff that you had to do, the traveling, the logistics, the cooking, the shopping, the inventory, the enforcer. Where's your entrepreneurial spirit come from? Is that something in the bloodline? You have other family that were entrepreneurs, or?
Well, the boys are all entrepreneurs now.
But they got that from their mother.
Well,
right?
Naturally.
Yeah, and just the how their life went on and how things fell into place for them. How do I answer this?
Do you think it's because of the structure that you created for them through their childhood that led them to be able to be as successful as they are today?
Well,
Maybe?
definitely. They knew that this is what had to be done. You have homework. You have this, you have that. Like, for example, homework. Okay, you've got a hockey tournament in Toronto this weekend. It's Thursday. You're going to leave Friday afternoon for this tournament, but you have a project that's due at school on Monday or Tuesday. Well, it will be done on Thursday. And that was just the way it was. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. You did it because it had to be done. We're not doing it Sunday night at 2 a.m. when we get back home. You just did it. I don't want to say lucky, but just the way everything was structured, that yes, indeed, that we had a program and you had to stick with it, because one thing will throw everything else out of line if it isn't done in order. So things just had to be done the way that they should be done.
Or the green spoon was going to come out?
Yeah, the green spoon.
I think any family in the Northeast, I know my brother and I, we could actually hear the rollers on the drawer opening, and we knew that meant the wooden spoon was coming out, so we better straighten up real quick.
Yep. Yeah, well, they just laughed at me anyway, because, I'm running around chasing these dynamic kids. They didn't care. They just laughed at me anyway, so.
Let's talk about the book. What made you decide to end up writing a book? What was the inspiration behind that?
I have a ghostwriter, Sue Monshaw. She was a friend of my brother's, a friend of some other people, some acquaintances, and she had been writing, but she never wrote a book. And so she was interested in writing a book. She had done just articles, magazines. And a lot of people would say to me, well, you should write a book because really nobody else is in the situation that you're in. Like, I'm really the only one. And a few other people I talked to that had written books said, everybody has a story. Doesn't matter who you are, you have a story. And so, you throw it out there to say, yeah, this isn't, maybe to clarify some things also, because maybe people think like, oh, you're so lucky. And it's not luck. Things fell into place, as far as injuries could have thrown any of them out at any point, even in high school, in middle school. They could have been done. Bad grades could have thrown them out because they wouldn't have gotten to college and stayed in college. There was just a lot of components that go into this, because there's a lot of good athletes out there, and some of them just don't make it because they don't have the family backing. Maybe they can't get to practice because there's nobody there to take them. Maybe, they don't have the nutrition and the knowledge or the understanding. There's just so much in there that things just kind of, fell into place because, of all the things that we did.
I got a question for you, Jane. I'll let you go.
Yeah.
That I believe only a mother can answer. When you mention about being lucky that your kids are in the pro sports, I almost feel like it could be a blessing and a curse, because, we spent most of our adult life watching football games, so we're very aware of, of the dynamic, and we enjoyed it from a fan standpoint. And fan stands for fanatic, and you know that. Some fans are just crazy.
Yes.
But knowing they could be injured at any time, how did that make you feel? Because I imagine even as a father, I want to live through my son's eyes. He's playing, yeah, everything's roses, Super Bowl, here we come. But the hits and the injuries, was it almost agonizing? Is it difficult to watch your boys play?
Personally, for me, no. I am not a worrier.
Good.
I go into a game and I just say to them before the game, good luck and have fun. Play your best. And as with anything in life, but I'm not a worrier. And so I never went into a game worried. I've been there and saw the big injuries. And then you're like, oh gosh, but I never told them that they couldn't play after their injuries. They're, adult men. They have to make the decision. If I were to say to them, that's it, you're done, you're not playing, you have to listen to me, then the rest of my life, they're going to be like, well, you told me I couldn't play, maybe I could have gone on, right?
The regret.
And they're right, and they're adult men. They have to make that decision. Injury after injury, you have to make that decision on your own.
There's some sound advice for mothers out there.
And you can't make them go. You can lead a horse to water.
Yeah.
You can't make them drink. So people who have kids that are, 5 years old and they're best, the best kid on the T-ball, it's like, talk to me when he's 18. And
So much
maybe
can
he
happen.
will not even be into sports at all, which he probably has a better chance that he won't be.
It's funny you
if
say
he's
that.
into something else. And good.
Yeah.
Be into something. Just be in something. It doesn't have to be sports. Be into something. Be involved in something. So you learn as a group. You learn as a participant, because that's what life is all about. You'll get into a group.
Podcasting.
Maybe you're dancing. Maybe you're podcasting. And, the good and the bad come with it, and you get people who are going to send you negative reviews and say things and take what you said out of context. You have to make those decisions as to, what you want to do. But as long as you're involved in something, let the kids be involved in something.
That's cool.
Doesn't matter what it is.
I like that.
I got to know, it seems like, first of all, you brought up the 5-year-old that's the best on the team. And there's a lot of parents out there that they literally live their lives to make their children pro athletes. You did not.
Not at all.
You essentially just
that.
taught your children how to live their lives effectively. And you had this structure and this organization, which is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of bred them into the people
Well,
they
they
became.
had each other. And so that was their big determination, was one could do it, I can do it. If you can do it, I can do it, kind of thing. So, they followed each other and they encouraged each other. And to me, if there was one or two boys, maybe they wouldn't have gotten where they are, but because there's 5, maybe, that had a lot to do with it, is the encouragement from each other.
Right.
One story in the book that stood out to me, I would say overwhelmingly positive, but the one that kind of tugged on my heartstrings and made me a little bit sad was when you were talking about, let's say, the boys, because I could relate to the story, because my brother and I weren't welcome to some people's houses when we were younger because we were the devil.
Right.
But you mentioned about going to I think it was a Super Bowl party, and there was no kids allowed. And you got there and there was some kids. How did that make you feel at that point? And were you still friendly with those individuals after? Did that kind of fracture the relationship a little bit?
No, still being friends with them. In one respect, I could understand. They had the little girls there, but they didn't want the boys there. In one respect, I can understand, but in the other respect, I couldn't, because I'm not a person who lets them run around and ruin someone's house.
You disciplined them.
Yes. I mean, I'm not going to sit there drinking beer and watching a game, and I don't even know where they are. It was like, first of all, I wouldn't even drink at all because I have to watch them and drive home. So secondly is, it's not going to be fun for me to go there and watch. So in one respect, it gave me a little time to not be with them, and enjoy maybe being with other adults. But on the other respect, yes, you have that little bit of like, well, gosh, no kids, then how come other people are here when they have girls? So it was kind of
I see now.
Sure, of course it does. It's kind of like a slap in your face, like, well, okay, well, great. Why are my kids invited? But I didn't let them run around and ruin people's houses. So that's the whole thing, is maybe they didn't understand that I don't let them do that.
The fear of the unknown. It's sad that they didn't even open that possibility. But that story actually stuck out to me, but I think you handled that and answered very professionally. Yeah, I wasn't expecting to hear that. That was really good.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
What's your favorite story out of the book?
Oh, gosh.
I like the exotic fish.
I don't know. I can't. I don't know. There's just so many.
Let's talk about not the
favorite?
sports, the Rhodes Scholar. That to me is
Yeah,
unbelievable. I never even knew what a Rhodes Scholar was, obviously, because I don't have much of a college.
Because you're not a
background.
Rhodes Scholar.
Yeah, 100%. I could barely read a page of a Harry Potter book.
We were talking about the probability, of becoming a professional athlete, and you've done that with 5. That in itself is an anomaly. But then in addition, Dan, I believe,
Right. Mm-hmm.
was nominated to be a Rhodes
Right.
Scholar. And for those that don't know,
I didn't know. Explain what a Rhodes Scholar is.
0.7% of the world's population actually become Rhodes Scholars.
Wait, say that again?
0.7% of the world's population actually become Rhodes Scholars. So now pair that with someone who's also a professional athlete. I don't even know, like, there could be 10 zeros before the.
What
the
is a
percentage of
Rhodes
that.
Scholar?
So it's a scholarship that is awarded, and I believe they're sent off to Oxford University. Is that correct?
Yes.
But you're nominated for that?
I don't know if things have changed, and it's been a while, so I don't know if things have changed since that happened with, Dan being offered.
Yeah, I think there's something like a couple thousand every year that are nominated.
That's
and, like,
unbelievable.
they select like 30 or something to that effect. I mean, it's very, very prestigious.
How was that process deciding which way to go? That's a big accolade.
Well, you had the football there. I mean, I don't think it was too much of a decision.
First love.
Yeah,
You know?
100%. I mean,
And besides, they put a lot into the scholastic part of it, but then you've also put a lot in physically. So, right, it would be a hard decision because it's not like, oh, well, one came easy. They're both jobs, they're both work. You have to work at anything that you do. So he seemed to make the decision pretty fast, though.
Did you know growing up that he was just a little different, hit a little bit of an edge over everyone else?
I can't say that because I would imagine that Chris would have been right up there. Chris was accepted to Harvard, but chose to go to the University of Maryland because Harvard, being the Ivy League, does not have athletic scholarships.
Right.
So you could go.
we talk about that. Like, what? They can't afford it?
Isn't
Isn't that crazy? The Ivy
right.
League schools don't have scholarships.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if things have changed because we're
No,
No,
talking,
they haven't.
they don't have the athletic scholarships. They didn't have bowl games that they went to. You had your season, and that was it. Right. So I think going to University of Maryland. Chris started out then and decided to go to the University of Maryland on a full scholarship, and so he went there, but then transferred to the University of Arizona after 2 years. So, and then back then you had to sit out a year. So he sat a year because you're Division I. You had to sit out a year, and so he sat out, and he actually was on the baseball team at University of Arizona. And still kind of practiced here and there, But then Rob came over to University of Arizona when he graduated from high school too. So then they were there together. So anyway, Chris was right up there, and Glenn too.
And they're all cut from really good cloth.
Yeah, they have. They're not dumb jocks. I'll tell you that much.
And they're big boys. So I want to get into the cooking aspect of it. We love food. We try and eat clean. Mom's a good cook. But in here, it starts talking about some of the amount of the stuff that you would buy.
Right.
And so for any mother out there, maybe even single mother or mother that's struggling to get by, I just want you to really take in what Miss Diane was having to deal with when she was shopping. It says, and correct me if I'm wrong, but per week, you would go through 7 gallons of milk per week.
Easy. Oh, yeah.
That's unbelievable to me. 7 gallons of milk.
That's like a full cow.
There was. It says half cup. 40 pounds of chicken. And by the way, the chicken souffle recipe, I mean, is it still the family favorite?
Yes. I've had I modified a little bit to be gluten-free, which is easy to do because you just use gluten-free bread and then the gluten-free mushroom soup. But other than that, it is. So I had to modify it for, one of the grandkids so that when they come over that they could have it, but they still love it, and the friends still want it. And I don't know why. Like, maybe it's wholesome, it's just everything is there in it. So maybe it just reminds everybody of being home or
100%. And I think it's
a
something with you
comfort.
making it, because I used to say this all the time. My mother and, let's say, my wife, they could be using the same ingredients, the same stove, the same utensils.
Yes.
One just tastes a little different. And I'm sure
Well,
that's what you're sprinkling in there.
Funny you say that, because they would come up to me and say, Mom, can you make me peanut butter and jelly sandwich? I have always used my own homemade strawberry jam. And, can you make me peanut butter and jelly sandwich? And I say, make it yourself, And they go, oh, but when you make it, it tastes so much better.
It's just not the same.
It's made with love.
Yes.
But also, you've got to throw in the element of they were just too damn lazy
Yeah,
to do
well,
it.
yeah, no argument
Right,
there. No argument there.
you make it, you clean it up, you get it all out, and just hand me the sandwich. That's, so sometimes you wonder, there's a little mixture in there of, you just didn't want to make it. That's all.
Talking about food and cooking, it seems like that's a passion of yours.
It has consumed my life. And I guess I really didn't realize it until, after they were gone, about how much time and how much, work I put into feeding them. You just did it. I had my places I stopped to get, better deals, finding things because I had to buy in such quantity.
It was like you owned a restaurant. You were buying like you owned a restaurant. Go to Restaurant
Right,
Depot.
and then you had the other kids. There were other kids that were constantly over, as most families had, somebody that was over that wasn't, a direct family member, but they just kind of were absorbed into the family. And I had some, and a lot of kids came every day. Some came and stayed for years. Their clothes were there. They were there. They had little jobs to do. They were just part of the family, just because of their own family dynamics. But, the cooking, I don't know that I said it in the book, but something that always I found kind of funny was, when you're kids, you always think that everyone's going to go to the house where the parents aren't home. Like, let's go over there after school. We can smoke cigarettes or drink beer or, whatever, in middle school or high school, whatever. And I found that in observing other families and stuff, maybe, but in my family, the kids came over, right? If they didn't have something immediately after school, they came home, and all these kids came with them. And then I started realizing that these kids didn't have anyone at home. They were going to go home to an empty house. Both the parents were working, and they didn't want to. They wanted to come home to a house where somebody was there, and they would come in, and they, hung around, and they could eat, and they all had sandwiches, and they all had cookies, and they all had, all the homemade food in it. I think that they want to come home to somebody. They do not want to come home to an empty house.
Respect for you for creating an environment for that to happen. That's awesome. That's so awesome.
Yeah. And of course, coming over to our house was okay. If it's Gordy's friend and Gordy isn't home, then you just hang out with Dan. Or if you're Chris's friend and Chris isn't home, you hang out with Rob. Like, they didn't care. Some kids would just come over and be like, okay, well, who is home?
Let's play.
Yeah. And then we can go do something.
Well, it seems like you're a perfect fit, which I believe this is something that you even wanted at one point to be in a Campbell's Soup commercial.
I do want to be in a Campbell's Soup commercial. Yes.
You haven't been yet?
No. I want to do like my cream of mushroom soup, because I only used Campbell's cream of mushroom soup for how many years?
Campbell's
40 years or something.
I hope that people at Campbell's Soup are listening to this, because here we are on podcast. I know the Kelsey brothers and the Kelsey mom has been at Campbell's Soup commercial, but here's a woman who has 5 professional athletes, and I'd argue Miss Kelsey couldn't hold your oven mitts. So I think Campbell's Soup should be reaching out to you to put you in a commercial.
I need somebody out there to hear about that. Yes.
We're going to pump that out
yes.
there.
Yes, that's what I use on my chicken souffle.
Oh,
Campbell's cream of mushroom soup.
That is a massive plug.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm hungry
Huge. Yeah. In regards to the kids pranking their mother, the story about taking the trophy at the golf course, I believe it was during the wedding, and hiding it in the back of your car. Can you kind of unpack that story from us? And the second part of that is, now that they're kind of off on their own, do you have any intentions of retaliating on these pranks as maybe they kind of get settled down into their family lives?
I know. You do think about doing stuff like that. But I don't know if I have the personality to do it.
Okay, maybe we
can help.
We can spark that for you.
Mike and I got married here at Miramar Lakes 12 years ago, and we came out and there was this big trophy in the back of our car, and they had taken it from the golf course,
Must have been the
country
trip.
club.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I don't even know where they got it, but it was heavy and it was big, and it was in the back seat of our car. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So, great. So we knew we were pretty good friends with one of the waiters there. So, we got a hold of him, and you're like, oh, you got to see this. He's like, oh my gosh, like, how did they get that? He goes, we got to get that back before morning. So we went over and got it put back. But, it just, I don't know why they're walking out the door and they just see it and say, well, hey, let's put this in the back of Mom's car. I don't know. I don't.
Have they always been like that, playing pranks on Mom?
It's not that it was not premeditated, I'm sure. It was just as they were walking out the door.
This seems like a good idea.
Yeah. Like, it's nothing's planned ahead of time. It's just whatever happens. So, it's harmless. It was put back. No one knew. It wasn't broken.
I like
so.
That. What other things are on your
know.
bucket list? So you said Campbell's Soup. What else is there that Miss Diane wants to accomplish here in the next couple?
Oh, well, I have like a Tide commercials that I want to do. I have a really, really good idea for a Tide commercial. Rob has done Tide commercials, so I need him to get me in there to do some of those, because I have some good ideas.
Rob, I hope you're listening. When Mom asks me to do something, I do it.
I've mentioned it to him, so he needs to, step up.
Get on it. It's his turn. Take care of Mom.
That's right.
You mentioned a story to us earlier. When people see celebrity, and they kind of almost lose track of the human aspect of things, and they almost look at you as maybe you're their personal key to one of your sons, or they kind of invade your privacy, don't really treat you like a human. What's kind of one of the strangest things that someone's ever done
Or
to try to
pet
get
peeve.
to your
You know, tickets, people asking for
Yeah.
tickets. That's got to be annoying as hell.
Well, they're not going to get tickets from me, that's for sure. Because you know what? They have to be paid for.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Rob doesn't just get, none of them, none of the kids, they don't just get free tickets. They have to pay for them.
But then
And
the
what they
nonsense
do
of
is,
making it all happen. That's like a
yeah. So let's say you wanted 4 tickets. Like, oh, okay, Chris, can you get 4? Well, if Chris has to get four, maybe he has to get 10 tickets altogether. They automatically take the money out of their paycheck because they're not going to wait to get paid for these tickets. You want them, they're paid for. Now, if somebody backs out tough, you got the ticket.
Go figure all the money they make those teams, and then they charge you for tickets.
Do you
Yeah.
think there's a lack of awareness sometimes on fan? Fan does stand for fanatic. I mean, some people are crazy.
I think they just don't care. Some people just don't care. They'll still, people will tell me, oh, I saw so-and-so eating at a restaurant when I was in LA, and I went up to him and I'm like, oh gosh, can you think you're the only one who's ever gone up to him? Like, can he not have, 20 minutes or 15 minutes to eat?
Yeah, you eat 3 times a day, so now the one time he's eating, you're gonna go and bend their ear for.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it. I actually, even if I didn't have kids that were professional athletes or celebrities, I still would not walk up to somebody and say something to them.
Yeah.
And what are you going to say to them anyway? They've probably heard everything.
A million times.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm your biggest fan.
Yeah.
Biggest fan. So the ticket thing, no, I never had a problem with that because no one was going to get tickets from me unless you paid me, pay for them first because there's a lot of family that can get tickets if you want to give out free tickets before friends of friends of friends, right?
Good for you.
And I think I say in the book too is, all of a sudden you get the kid that in kindergarten didn't invite you to their birthday party, but then all of a sudden,
Best friends now.
yeah, 18 years later, they're coming around going, oh, remember me? Remember
No.
Johnny? I was in your kindergarten class over at, Dodge Elementary. And and it's like, oh, yeah, you're the one that didn't invite me to your
Yeah.
birthday party.
Yeah, I remember you.
See
You're on
ya.
my list.
See ya.
But for some reason, we get back into, as we talked about earlier, about, the social media thing. All they're worried about is getting a picture,
The vanity.
getting a selfie,
Yeah.
so they can say, wow, don't you know who I am because I got a picture with so-and-so. So it comes down to that. Of course, I'm looking at it 2 different ways. I'm looking at it that this is something I never would do anyway, no matter what. Whether I
believe
had
that.
kids that were famous or not, I still wouldn't have done it. And secondly, now that I do have kids that are popular, I look at it, and sometimes I only have a very short time with my kids, maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours. Like people, I don't live with them; they're in different states, and people think that I have all this time with them, and sometimes I only have an hour. Sometimes, Rob stops at my house sometimes between going from Tampa to Miami, and it could be an hour, 1 hour. He stops, he eats, he leaves. He's continuing on. It's just, his pit stop on his way. I have an hour. Well, what if we were out, you had an hour and then somebody else came along and they wanted to do the selfies and they wanted to do all that. You took away my time, which
It's a finite commodity.
Yeah.
well, right. And in one respect, you think, well, people just think that I see them all the time, all of them.
Yeah.
And I don't.
No.
They all have their families and their lives and their businesses. So you just don't see them all day, every day.
Miss Diane, are you a grandma?
Yes.
How many grandchildren?
9.
9?
9 so far out of just the 2. Chris has 4 and Dan has 5.
Wow.
And the other 3, not yet.
How do you like being a grandma?
I love being a grandma, but you just don't see them a lot because they're out of state.
Are they
you know?
paying back the sports parent thing that you did? Or they're not there yet?
They're-
Carting
the
them around
kids-
everywhere?
Yeah, they're just starting, and they're going, oh my gosh, this is so much work. I'm like, you're only doing 2 so far.
There you go.
Yeah,
See?
yeah. You've already set the bar kind of like they're not getting sympathy from you.
I know. Yeah, I know.
It's kind
They
of
aren't.
hard to talk to her about that. Can you imagine?
No.
Like, yeah, talk to me when you have 3 more.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, okay, well, wait till they're all in middle school and high school, and then you have all of them going to something, all different days, all different sports.
So we touched a little earlier on you currently have a home watch business. How many clients do you have?
Probably about 230, 250 maybe.
Who's running? It's just you and Mike running the business?
Yes.
How do you fit?
Yeah.
You
what
know
is
what?
that?
We are pretty
Systematic?
much a 9-month business, so we will pick up again in April. Right now is our quiet time. So it works out really, really well between the 2 of us. We have certain ones that we go to. I have my list. He has his list. Most of them are every other week. So you take your, let's say 240 and it's 120 a week. And then there's the two of us and we do it 7 days a week. And it works out well. We did stop taking some customers recently just because we feel that if we were to get too big and we couldn't handle it, which we can still handle it now, but if we got really big, all of a sudden you can't handle it and then you're making mistakes. And these are people's homes that, they're worth a lot of money. And even if they weren't a lot of money, it's still your home. It's your property that you own. And, we want to make sure that we do a good job in finding any issues that would be there, especially with the air conditioners down constantly. That's huge. When your air conditioner's down, you've got to get it up. And then that's the priority. And some days, we'll find 5 air conditioners down in one day. And we'll have to, let the owners know. You have to, get somebody over there, depending on what they want done, to meet somebody there. Or sometimes people just say, I'll give them the code and they can go in and fix it. So everybody's different. We take pride in what we do because we really do care about our customers. And I would be devastated if anything ever happened, on my watch because we really want to be thorough, and that's why we kind of, it does seem like we have a lot, but we do handle what we have.
It sounds like you take a lot of pride in what you do, and I think those customers should be grateful to have someone like you, especially taking care of their home. You're right. That's where everything starts, is your home. And so to have that safe and always looked after, that's awesome.
Well, they're so far away. They're so far up north, they're 1,200 miles away, and it's like, all of a sudden an alarm goes off and they call you and say, my alarm's going off to my back door. Okay, I'll be over there in a couple minutes.
What made you get into this business?
We moved down here full time. Mike's an engineer. He left his job. We came down here and we had some friends that were moving to a different unit, had a lot of work to be done. So they asked Mike to do a lot of the odds and ends in there. He can always figure everything out. Anything, if they had like an electrical or, plumbing or any, he'd figure out like the little odds and end things that need to be done. Yeah. And he was doing that. And then they said, well, after it's done, we need you to do the home watch. And, we weren't really quite sure what home watch was because we did own our place down here for about 4 years before we moved here full time. But I have a brother that lives right down the street. And so if we tried to come down every 6 to 8 weeks, year round, like for a long weekend. So we didn't really have a big issue with leaving it for 6, 7, 8 months straight. But if we were going to be gone more than 6 weeks, I just asked my brother to just pop in and make sure that, the AC was still working and check the mailbox and things like that. But, sure enough, he went in one time and the AC wasn't working. So you just don't know when it's going to happen. People say, I have a brand new air conditioner. I just got the lines cleaned out and, we just had all my maintenance done. And 2 weeks later, the thing's down and they're gone, So you just don't know. It doesn't mean because it's a brand new AC that nothing's going to happen to it.
And there's a lot of value in having someone go check that because if that goes down, the problems that can be caused because of that, the mold, all the humidity, that could turn into a disaster.
Yes.
Quickly.
Yes. We've had some people that hired us because it did happen to them previously. Yep. And they either had someone coming or who was supposed to come and didn't. And the AC went down probably for months, and they never knew that the AC was down and pretty much lost everything in there. Everything was just covered with mold, everything. There's a good value to having somebody stop in and check your place around here.
100%.
Yeah.
We've gone in a lot of homes over the last 20 years, Jay and I, and we've seen, I would say, an overwhelming majority, they're beautiful. A lot of houses to take care of. You see all different types of things. But we've also gone into a couple handfuls where I don't even know how people got to the point of owning a house. Have you come across anything without calling them out in particular?
Yeah, well, you know what?
Made you scratch your head?
Yeah. And that's one of the rules that Mike and I have. We do not talk about our customers. Like, I won't say, Johnny Smith had blah, blah, blah in his house. Right. I see things in people's houses. Well, that's their business. And I don't tell other people what I see in anyone else's houses.
Hoarding or anything over the top.
I mean, but in general, yes, there are always the exceptions of you think that these places are all gorgeous and you walk in and you're a little bit surprised. So
to say the least.
Yes. And I mean, and you guys go in there.
Yep.
And you're especially like, ripping out showers and stuff. It's like, I mean, I had mine replaced and I felt guilty because, once you take it apart, you got all those tracks and stuff. You can't clean that at a normal every day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed because, you can see these spots, but you can't clean them.
That's nothing.
And it's
Right.
been, but
That's nothing.
but the people who don't even clean.
It'd make you sick to your stomach. I don't even want to talk about it.
Yep.
Yeah, I've heard a few other stories from plumbers and stuff who have gone in to, replace the dishwasher, and they pull the dishwasher out and there's a dead rat underneath it. And I wouldn't. No.
We may follow in your footsteps one day and write a book about some of the things we've seen.
You're right.
We should.
You're
Jay and I,
right.
20 years ago, when we first moved down here, we went in and remember the old big screen TVs, but it was a projection. It had the wooden doors on the front, a massive TV.
Yes.
And there was these two little old ladies. When we walked in the front door, we were there to install a shower door. It was floor to ceiling of QVC boxes, but they were unopened. And when I mean floor to ceiling, there was a pathway to the kitchen, to the bathroom, and to the living room. And these little ladies were in their nightgowns, but they changed the channel. Something happened and went to commercial, and the QVC bar was burned into the television. And that was my first experience of, my mother was I don't want to say neat free. She's very clean and always made us be very clean. Like, we couldn't go outside till the room was clean. So I was kind of grown up in the environment of put your shit away. If you take it off, put it away, put it in the hamper. And when we went into a house like this, I felt like I was on another planet. I couldn't believe people were living like this. It just struck me. But for the most part,
I don't. Yeah, we don't have it. Yeah, like that.
I know
mean, it's
opinions
just the
experience.
exceptions. There's some people that just aren't quite. It's fine.
it's
You
just
know,
They live
different.
it's fine.
It's different.
Right. It's just different. I don't know why, but that's their house, that's their castle. They can do what they want inside, and I go in and do what I'm going to do, and I don't judge them, and I don't tell other people.
Are the boys pretty
them.
organized?
Yes, they are. They're very organized, but I think that all comes from the sports thing too. If you're in college and you're late, well, doesn't the whole team have to run the stairs for an hour after practice or at 4 a.m.
That's right.
And the other guys aren't going to deal with you if you
Self-police it.
Yeah, so they're good. I try to be on time. Sometimes I'm really good with being on time, and then other times, I'm not. But I think that when the kids were little, I always had this story of, I'd get Gordy dressed, and then Dan, and then Chris, and then Rob, and then you got Glenn, and he's an infant, and I'm like, oh, now I got to change his diaper. So change his diaper, get him dressed to get out the door, and in the meantime, Gordy, Dan, and Chris have gotten too hot, and they've taken their clothes back off again, their coats.
Oh my gosh!
And
it's
so
just
then
never
you're
ending.
like, oh my gosh, by the time I get the last one done, the first ones have taken their coats and hats and everything off again because they got too hot waiting to get, all of them. So there's kind of a running joke of, trying to get them all out the door. Yeah.
After going through all that for all those years, did you, a lot of times people talk about having like a moment of purpose, like, well, this is what I've done all these years. This is what I've done this for. It's finally here. Did you have one of those moments yourself?
Maybe not the moment, but you reflect back of, wow, did I really do all that stuff? Like every single day, every second was taken. And you had to do as much as you could ahead of time, which I still try to do. Anything that can be done ahead of time. I put it in my car the night before, all my paperwork, everything that I need in my car the night before, just to have anything done. The kids were coming. Last week, Chris came with his 4 kids, his wife, and so I knew that they were coming, and so I made all the meals ahead of time, everything. So they were there 5 days, and we never once had to go to the grocery store to get anything because I had bought everything ahead of time. We had all the meals, everything. I don't write it down and say, well, Tuesday we're having this. It's just like, well, okay, if the kids are fishing, I have a little time, I can do this is a little faster, or this one takes a little longer, we'll do this one tonight, or cooking on the grill, whatever, but it's done ahead of time. And still they come in, like, Rob's known to be no-notice Rob. He just shows up sometimes at people's houses, no matter where he is. Like, he'll show up at Chris's house in Texas, and they don't even know he's coming. Sometimes, he'll call and say, oh, I'm on my way, I'll be there, and I'm just leaving Tampa, I'll be there in 2 hours. But then he'll get there, and he's like, why do you have so much, I'm like, well, you never tell me ahead of time, like, when you're coming. Or I shouldn't say never, sometimes. He's like, well, I don't have to worry about it because anytime I walk in the door, you have enough food for, so many people. Your refrigerator still, you know what? I still have my refrigerator freezer in the kitchen, and I have a full freezer and a full refrigerator in my laundry room that have food in them.
It's always going to
because
be
they
like that.
walk in the door, and then they go, oh, and they just walk over to the refrigerator. I swear they walk over, they open the refrigerator, look at it, and then they turn around and go, oh, hi, Mom. It's like first they want to see what there's to eat.
These boys are really blessed to have a mother like you. You can tell how passionate you are and caring for their well-being, and it shows. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. I never realized, just because you're so busy, that all those years that went by of that it was so much of feeding them because they wanted to eat. There was never a problem with saying, you sit down and you eat your dinner. It would be like, can you leave a little for me? Like more so. I didn't have a problem with that, with them eating. That was my life. The shopping, what are we going to have, and feeding them all. Yeah.
Did you have time for anything for yourself?
Yeah.
What did you do when you had a moment to get away?
I really didn't. And that's fine.
Wow.
Because now I can do whatever, but I didn't. No. I have to admit, I didn't. No.
It's amazing.
That's unbelievable.
No, I didn't go out with girlfriend. You know what? My time was sitting in the bleachers talking to other mothers and other fathers. That was my time. So I'm sitting at the ice rink. They're playing hockey. All 5 of them played hockey. So, you're there and you're sitting here talking to the other mothers. And then the next year, you're with some of the same people and some new people. And, all the kids get all kind of mixed up with, so you get familiar faces every year.
Yep.
And that was my time. And you're sitting, watching a basketball game and, football and baseball. And so it was all, the other parents.
What's your favorite sport?
I have to admit that I really like baseball, and I think it's because it's relaxing. It's, there's to me, on my side of it, there's no pressure. You're like, okay, yeah, and you watch some plays, and normally when you think of baseball, you think of green grass and you could smell the lilacs and the sun is shining. So those are the things that, I relate to baseball. And so maybe that's why it's like just more relaxing.
Do you still enjoy going to games? Do you go to games?
I do.
Have you been into your spring training games?
I just went the other day with your parents.
To the Red Sox game. That's right.
Yes, went to the Red Sox.
What a beautiful stadium.
And Jay was there. Yeah. So sitting behind me, well, you weren't dumping beer down my back or anything. I tend to have that.
No, we
problem.
did that to Mike.
You mentioned that in the book. Didn't that happen to you at a state?
It's just like constant. It's like beer. I don't like beer. I don't like the smell of beer. But I always tend to have beer on me. Like people.
Somebody poured beer on you.
Oh, but they're loaded. They
don't pay attention.
No, and then and their arms are going, and they dump a beer, and it goes down your back, and and the person next to you and they dump their beer on your shoes, and and it's cold out. Now you got wet. But and then they're always like, "Oh, sorry, Sal, I'll buy you a beer." I'm like, "I don't like beer.
Yeah,
I don't like the smell of beer.
Leave me alone."
Now I got beer all over me.
Well,
I don't know why. It just like some people say, everywhere they go. I also tend to get the person with the big hat or the big hair the tall person right in front of me. The whole row will be like this. There's the person that's like that, and they're in front of me, and I just try to think well, maybe somebody's sitting behind one of my kids and they have that problem, so I try to
You're very thoughtful.
Somebody has to sit behind my kids sometimes.
Well, we know you don't like beer, but I believe you like peanut M&Ms.
I love peanut M&Ms.
Well, we got you a big care package over here, so maybe
Look at this.
maybe if Campbell's Soup doesn't reach out to you,
That's
then
right.
M&Ms could reach out.
M&M's Mars.
And we got you a big,
sure do.
Our mag swag bag that you can open later. We got some bottles of wine, a couple Tervis tumblers. Not as nice as these, by the way.
Yeah, the ice shaker.
Ice shakers.
Yes.
Come on.
The
I can't
Brady
be
Gronk.
seen with a Tervis tumbler.
Yeah,
That's
actually,
blasphemy.
I don't know
Has to
why
be
I
an
use
ice
that.
shaker.
Yeah, it's definitely ice shakers.
Okay.
They're in the bag there for sure.
Oh, okay.
But we wanted to thank you for taking time to come talk to us
Thank you
about
so
your
much.
book and
Always
share your
fun.
story.
Make sure you check out her book on Amazon.
Yeah, we're going to put a link to the book in the show notes. But we also wanted to extend Jay and I are heavily involved in the construction industry around here. And if there's anything that you ever need or contacts that hopefully you'll reach out to Mom and Dad or us personally, we'd be happy to help you in any way we can.
Super.
But we really appreciate you taking the time to come down and do this.
Well,
Yes.
I love it. It's easy to talk to you guys.
It's been easy
Whoa.
to talk
I'm
to you.
probably more familiar. If it was two girls sitting there, I probably wouldn't like it, right? Because I'm always outnumbered. So and no matter where I go, I still am outnumbered.
That's cool.
So I'm still outnumbered. Well, I do have some granddaughters. So
Oh.
So I had the 5 boys, and then I had a grandson, grandson, then a granddaughter, and then a couple more grandsons, and then this ninth one was a girl. So there are 3 girls in there.
Man.
There
All
are
right.
3 girls in there finally.
Can you imagine what Christmas is like?
We do know, yeah.
What is that like during the holidays? Does everybody ever get to get?
No, you know what? As far as sitting down and having dinner, like a Christmas or Thanksgiving, that hasn't happened in 23 years for me.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Gordy left for college, and when they leave for college in Division I, it's 365 days a year. You don't come home like other kids come home in the summer. And they'll get like a summer job, whatever, come home, drive the parents crazy, and then leave again.
Eat all the food.
No coming home. You are there. You're taking classes and you're practicing every day, the whole time. And Christmas time, no, especially with football, with bowl games. So they had maybe 5 days in January, depending when the bowl games fell, and then they would. Possibly be able to come in. And of course, they all were so far away that you didn't just come home. Like some of the kids maybe only lived an hour away from the college. Like let's say, University of Arizona. Well, you're not going to fly to Buffalo for Thanksgiving dinner and back the same day. So you had practice in the morning on Thanksgiving, and then they would give them like 4 or 5 hours, and you have to be back.
So it's been 23 years since the entire family
Sat down and had a meal together. We have, Dan got married, but, all sitting
Sure.
at different tables.
Sure.
Chris got married. We're all at different tables. And then the Super Bowls are sitting all over the place. So we've been in the same building, maybe, but I haven't sat down. Like, I personally have not sat down with my 5 boys and had a Thanksgiving or Christmas in 23 years.
I think that is a perfect segue for Campbell's Soup to pony up and help sponsor a family Gronkowski dinner hosted and cooked by Miss Diane to have the
chicken souffle recipe
with the Campbell's soup.
Campbell's soup on the top.
Yeah.
Yes, it's been
It's
been that long. It's been that long. Yes, I see them, but we're not all together.
Well, I hope you guys have that.
At the same time. So,
any charities or anything that you're involved with that you like to
actually,
promote?
last night I volunteered over at Culver's. We had a charity going for it was National Down Syndrome Day.
Okay.
We had done a big charity ourselves with Gronk Nation Youth Foundation about a year and a half ago, and we donated a lot of money to 3 different organizations in the area, and one was the Down syndrome. And then I've gotten involved in that just from having a neighbor whose son had Down syndrome, and he was the most loving person. These kids get to be in their, teen years and 20, but they're walking up to their mom and dad and saying, "I love you, Dad." And I'm like, oh my gosh, you don't have any of my boys in their teenage years or 20 walking up and saying, "I love you, Mom," in front of all their friends,
Yeah.
Like that and it's like, they're just so darn sweet.
Yeah.
And they're so adorable. So we had, I did that last night. I've been getting more involved with them. They, April 6th in the morning, they have a run over at Estero Park.
Okay.
Which is another fundraiser for them because it's with Gigi's Playhouse, and it's actually 99% volunteers. Wow. So, right. Yeah. And it's nationwide. And boy, they're such a group of great families. They all get together, but I think you get to the point, and I'm not real familiar with it, but I believe that you get to the point where you're finished with high school. There's no place for, a person with Down syndrome to go. But this is any age. There was a gentleman there last night who's 62. So he's, the oldest participant with their Gigi's Playhouse.
That's phenomenal.
It was.
What
It was
a
a
great
lot
organization.
of fun. And the kids were, serving the food to the tables. And, we really had a good time. But it's a very good organization. And I've heard different people around the country who are teachers have said, "Oh, my gosh, that is great that you're in that." Because, I teach kids that, need to go to, a class, go to
Special
Gigi's.
needs, yep.
Yes, to go to Gigi's Playhouse, and it's around the country, and so it's really a really great program. A lot of caring people, and it's not just playing though. They have classes, and they'll have
Teaching them skills, soft skills.
yes,
Things to
right,
get by.
and just helping them, with their math and speech, everything, right. So it's not just coming in and playing;
Right.
it's you're learning too.
And when's the next fundraiser that you said in Estero?
April 6th.
Oh, on Corkscrew in that park. there.
yes,
Estero Park,
on
yeah.
Corkscrew, Estero Park, yes.
And they can
like-
find out about this on the Gigi's
Yes,
Playhouse
go
website.
to Gigi's Playhouse. Yes, for the local Fort Myers branch, and yeah, it's April 6th.
That's
maybe
coming
like
up.
9 in the morning, 9
That's
to
coming up.
12. Yes, it is coming up.
Cool.
So that's and we've done other fundraisers, and of course, Gronk Nation Youth Foundation has raised millions and given it all back to all different charities. I know when Rob first started with the Buccaneers, he was just in like maybe a month or two, and one of the local high schools real close to the stadium had their shed burned down, had burnt down overnight, and all the equipment was in there. I know all the football equipment was in there. I don't know what else was in there, and so he and the Buccaneers bought all new equipment for the high
That is
school.
so
great.
cool. Oh, this reminds me, before we finish, I got to ask you a story because of the equipment. My brother and I, and Jay as well, up in North, we were a hockey family. Dad was a professional hockey referee. My mother loathed when we would come home with our big, heavy hockey bag and, kind of spread the equipment out to dry out in the basement because it reeked. I mean, it was disgusting. But there was only 2 of us, and we weren't nearly to the size and capacity of what you had. How was that dynamic with? Because didn't they start off playing hockey? Did all the kids start playing
Yes,
hockey?
they did.
I mean, how did
Yeah.
you manage all that? Like this, was it like a locker room smell in the house?
Yeah, it was tough. The only thing that I can say about so if you read my book and I have the word stench, it's not a smell, it's a stench. It is. There is no other smell like hockey smell. It has its own smell. It's absolutely disgusting.
This is
And
true.
You wash and wash and wash. It's like you want to just pour bleach over their hands. They got those hockey gloves on, those leather gloves on, and then of course when they're young, they spend most of the time on the ice, so they come home and they're soaking wet because they're always falling. So everything just stinks. But every day that stuff got washed. Every time you wore it, anything that could be. I'm like, I wish I could throw that helmet and the skates and all that in the dishwasher or the wash machine, right? I mean, some of the stuff you couldn't, but it was always aired out. Always aired out. Every time you wore that, it is getting washed. It gets washed every single time.
So if you
Anything
never
that
smell a
could.
hockey bag again, it'd be
That'd
too
be
soon.
fine with me.
Yeah.
If I never walked into that locker room again, that is the most disgusting smell.
Well,
Yeah,
I think that's.
I would change the diapers before I would go into that. It's just a stench. It's absolutely disgusting.
that's hilarious.
You actually put a diaper in my hockey
Yeah,
bag once.
yeah. Well,
but
that was
that's
a
a
prank.
different story.
That was a different prank. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Well, I hope
okay.
it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, it was bad. It was
Oh, it
bad.
was bad.
Yeah. It was those stupid diaper genies, and
I found it when I got to the rink.
yeah, I just accidentally had to hide that in there for you. You're welcome. But again, Miss Diane, we appreciate you coming in. Thank you for taking time. We're anxious to
Yeah.
put this out for everybody to see, but we wish you nothing but the best of luck with your business
Yeah.
and the charities that you're working with. And
Yep.
Maybe
Yeah.
we'll see you,
Yeah. It's always good to do the charities. A lot of nice people.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
thank you so
That's
much.
what it's all about. You're welcome. So yeah, my outnumbered. Always outnumbered.
Always outnumbered.
Always outnumbered.
We're going to put a
Everywhere
link
I
up
go.
for that.
Always.
All right, cool.
No matter where I go. Thank you for my gifts.
Of course.
I even
Thank
get
you.
gifts when I come here, huh?
That's what we have to do. We have to spoil you.